Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, please direct your attention back to the podcast. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. The second ever podcast. I know you guys have been waiting, I don't know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, I forget at this point. But welcome back to the second podcast hosted by the one and only Commissioner Hunter Corbin. And this time we're actually joined by a guest, or you could call it a co-host, Mr. Parker Corbin. Give it up for Parker Corbin. Boom.
Boys, what is up? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so the way that this is going to work is we're just experimenting with this one. We'll take some perhaps requests in the future for following podcasts to follow. Following podcasts to follow. I don't know about that one. But
Here,
anyways,
here.
for future podcasts, we'll take some recommendations about some fun things to talk about. Looking forward to the season coming up. But Park and I were talking about what would be a fun first show to have as our main topic. And so for today, we figured that we would talk about our power rankings for the 12 teams in our league leading up to the draft. So we'll call this podcast the pre draft power rankings. And we want to emphasize that this is specifically for the dynasty format, while there may be some teams that are the favorite for next year versus some teams that are really good looking forward to their future. We're balancing those things and we'll have a debate about our rankings. So the way that it'll work is I will tell Parker who I think is in what order out of everyone in our league, and then he'll do the same, and we'll have some fun banter back and forth. Hopefully, some of you guys take offense to some of the things we say because some of your guys' teams are just absolute fucking hot cross buns. And we will most definitely be attacking those at the bottom of the power rankings, but also at the same time giving credit to those there at the top. So, without further ado, I think Parker has a quick intro as well before we get started, and then we'll jump right in.
Well, appreciate that, Han. Yeah, just before we get things kicked off, I think it really pains me to do, but as a member of this league, I have to congratulate people who shined in the last season. This is me congratulating you, Hunter, for taking the first championship in the inaugural Dynasty season of Show Me TDs. I honestly wished it was anyone besides you, but you took it home
Even
and
Soren? I don't know. I feel like you'd rather me over Soren, let's be honest.
uh, honestly, yeah, maybe over Soren. We'll get the Soren team later. Like, holy fuck! But anyways,
All
yeah, I
right.
just want to congratulate you, bro. Good shit, but like, you ain't going back to back. I'm sorry, like, I'm not letting that
We haven't
happen.
had a
So
back to back winner yet. I'm looking to be the first to do it. Jaden was close. He won it, took a year off, and then came back and won it a second time. And he's actually the only team to have won it twice. So definitely looking forward to following up in his footsteps. But I'll let you know he ain't anywhere close to winning that third championship.
that is facts. But yeah, good shit. You deserved it. You deserved it. You took me out and you took Caleb out, and yeah, you took home the ship. So congrats, bro.
I appreciate that. A lot of hard work and dedication. Players coming in clutch. Patty Mahomes going down was scary. George Kittle going down was scary. But that whole 0 points from Taysom Hill really brought me to the championship. So shout out Taysom Hill.
That
That's my
is
boy.
facts. All right, let's kick these rankings off.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think just a couple things to touch on, which I already touched on it a little bit earlier, but we're looking at the overall roster strength. We're looking at the quarterback strength in the sense that this isn't super flex dynasty. The quarterbacks are actually weighted a little bit more than other positions. The average age of the roster, your draft capital, your depth. There's a lot of things that go into it. And one thing I want to
100%.
let everyone know is that we just made these relatively quickly. There wasn't a huge amount of thought that went into it. So I think it'll be fun just to talk out loud and debate some of these things. But anything else you want to talk about before we get into it?
No, I think you hit everything. Maybe just share your screen beforehand, just so the boys can get a visual of what we're working with.
Let me know if you can see my screen.
I can see it,
Okay, perfect. Well,
and we'll do this. We'll do a snake. So I think maybe you just kick it off, then go one by one.
okay, that works. I also hate to do this, right? You're giving me all the props, all the pats on the back. Here's the championship. You're like, you're the GOAT. You won it all. You know what I'm saying? But I got to shout you out. I got to shout you out. I put you
Uh,
as my number one. And I'm not just
that's
doing
love.
that because you were hyping me up. I think that there's a lot that kind of goes into your team. I think what we can do here, hopefully, can you see the screen now?
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. Do you think it makes sense to talk about my team first, or more? Let me put my one up and see if we're aligning,
Put
or
I would say, yeah, you can put your one up and then we can
yeah, I
talk
think
about
that
it.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, so my number one is slightly different than yours, and I'd love to talk about it, but I have Caleb at my number one spot.
Okay, cool. Then let's go ahead and would you rather talk about it before we pull up the teams, or do you want to kind of take a look at the teams as we talk about it?
But yeah, we can maybe just walk through like my team first, what you liked about it. I can walk through Caleb's, and I can just kind of say like what made me throw Caleb at number one overall versus maybe myself.
Okay. So here's your team. You can see this again, right?
I can, yes.
Okay. So I think the first thing was that I was always giving you crap for your quarterbacks because you waited for a while on quarterbacks. Great pick on T-Law, and then of course you traded for Joe Burrow, which is a big risk in a sense given his injury history. You have two potential; they could both be top 5 or 6 quarterbacks this year. So I like your depth there. I don't even want to get started on your freaking bench quarterbacks. I don't even know what to say about this, but long story short, like you have backups if needed. You don't have any star quarterbacks, but in a league of 12 people, it's pretty hard to have star quarterbacks anyways on your bench. So at least you have options there. But just your starting lineup is super deep between Omar and Jay and Javante. I think that's a great combo for your RB1, RB2. And then, of course, Drake London, JSN, both potential top 5 wide receivers. I think the reason I ranked you number one is because all of your players truly have the potential to be top 5 at their position, which I feel like really no other teams have that kind of all the way down their roster. Um, and
Really,
then
even Rome. I feel like I got some backlash from you in Rome
I guess
in the
not
past couple
Rome.
months.
I'm referring more to like you're drafting, and even like Cardinal T is not going to be top 5. So I guess I'm being a little bit too generous with that, but they all have the potential to be at worst. I would say like a wide receiver too.
Hmm.
So yeah, overall, I just think that you have all the pieces. You have a lot of young pieces between Hampton, Tyler Warren, JSN. Like overall, it's a young roster. It's a filled out roster. A lot of potential, and then of course your backup quarterbacks as well. And then you also have your draft picks coming up. So yeah, I think overall pretty strong team. Then we pull up
Yeah, it's kind of
Caleb's.
Caleb's.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can all agree Caleb has an absolute stud of a team. I think the main reason I threw Caleb above myself was his wide receiver core, in my opinion, is number one in the league. And I know you said quarterback is the main driver of superflex leagues. I disagree. I think wide receiver is a more liquid position, meaning you could sell Puka Nakua or Jamar Chase for way higher amounts than you could, in my opinion, someone like a Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels. That's just my hot take. With Caleb's insulation at wide receiver, Puka, Jamar, Luther, and then you have Rasheed on the bench, who's not even part of his starting lineup right now. His quarterback room is also, I would say, top 3 in the league. I think Kyler is going to have a bounce back year, whether that's a top 15 season or a top 7. I still think that gives him a lot of wiggle room. Then Jackson Dart is a stud, in my opinion. Crazy high upside with his rushing ability. Then Matthew Stafford paired with Puka gives him a nice stack as well. His running back room is the only weakness in my opinion, but I think DeAndre Swift is a good vet. Same with Bucky, and he has a first round pick. He might hit running back with that. So I just think overall his team just has not too many holes and crazy amount of strength in wide receiver room. Even as tight end, like Colson Wilvin's a top 3 tight end in my opinion in Dynasty above Warren. So yeah, I think overall he just has such a balanced roster, and I think I just put him a slightly ahead of mine considering I might be relying on Carnell Tate and Roma Dunze this year. I guess he is relying on Luther and Colson, and they're pretty young, but I gave him the slight edge. So that's kind of my take on Caleb's team.
Yeah, I'd say 2 things there. One, with his quarterbacks, I totally agree. Between Stafford, Dart, Tyler Murray, and Chuck, like those
Yeah,
are
I didn't even mention Chuck, so
yeah, like
that's another
his
one.
his depth is significantly better than yours in terms of confidence in a backup quarterback. Kyler Murray and Chuck are better than basically any of the quarterbacks on your bench, so I could see why you like those. I do disagree with what you said about the wide receiver versus quarterback thing, which I know we already touched on, but I guess we can agree to disagree on that. But anyways, for the sake of
100%.
time, you think we should move on?
Let's do it.
All right, who got your two?
I have myself at 2.
Okay. And you already touched on that. So I guess for the sake of time, we can move on unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about.
No, I mean I'm not really going to glaze my team too much. I do like my team. I think my trade with Henry was good on both sides. I think Henry really needed a running back and won't touch on his team too much, but was really trying to target a stud wide receiver, and I got the unless Kevin just does something stupid in the draft, like I'm probably taking Carnell Tate, and then I got a good
Insider
backup, and then I got a good app backup in Alec Pierce, which I think is he's going to be a sleeper this year. I think he's going to be a wide receiver one on a team that just lost Michael Pittman. So I think having him with Wandale will give me good depth. And I have 111, 201, and 301 this year. So looking to get some players there. But yeah, I just put myself just below Caleb in the power rankings.
Yeah, that trade was definitely interesting between you and Henry. I think I was even talking to Henry, and I think even afterwards he was a little hesitant. He's like, maybe I shouldn't have sold the 102 so fast, but it's a high risk, high reward play. Trayvon looked explosive towards the end of the year last year in his rookie year. He definitely showed that upside. Obviously, it might not be this year where he gets the full backfield because of that 50-50 look with Ramondre. But I think there's definitely upside. So high risk, high reward there. But as you can assume, I had Caleb here at the 2. So we'll go ahead and kind of just move on if you're okay with that. But I think we touched on both your team and Caleb's team. I think you guys, once again, are very similar. I just think that your starting pieces had higher upside. But then again, Caleb's bench, especially with his quarterbacks, were a little bit stronger. So overall, I would say you guys are 1A, 1B, we could call it.
Yep, I like it.
Okay. 3, I think after... Sorry, it's just acting all weird. But anyways, I think we could definitely have some interesting ones pop up here. But surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, I think this is an interesting one. I actually have Brandon here at the 3. How about you?
I am on the same page. I have Brandon at 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. So we are in agreement there. Let's go ahead and pull up Brandon's team. What did Brandon finish last year? Was it 7th or 6th? I forget. Did he make the playoffs?
Brandon finished. No, yeah, he did. I beat him in the first round. I think he finished. Yeah, he finished 6th technically. I think because he has a higher pick than TP.
Yeah, but it wasn't based on where they finished. It was based.
Yeah, it was based on points. I'm pretty sure.
So, anyways, whether he made the playoffs or didn't, he was either the last playoff team or just missed the playoffs, whatever it was. Definitely interesting that we have him ranked here at number 3 for the both of us.
Yeah, maybe you want to kick it off, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
Yeah. So Brandon's team, I think, just to kick it off, Jameer. I think he's going to be undoubtedly the best player in fantasy football this year, and I don't think that's a hot take at all. Like, he's going 101 in most redrafts, and then pairing that with Achane, who I think is the main focal point in his offense now, considering Waldo got traded, and Malik Willis is pretty mid, so I think he's just going to be dumping the ball off a lot. So his upside is just insane with the amount of receiving he could get. And then you can just go down the list. I think I'll just start with Bowers as well. You have 3 foundational pieces in Bowers, Achane, and Gibbs, and then building off the rest, you got McMillan, Olave. Not super huge on Christian Watson or his other flex position, but like that just comes with building out a roster, right? He has 106, I believe, so kind of looking in that like Casey Concepcion.
107.
You got 107, okay. Concepcion, maybe like a Jadarian Price. It just kind of depends how the board falls. I think going to quarterbacks, I think Brock Purdy is just a stable top 12 to 15 quarterback that he can rely on if he stays healthy every year. So not crazy upside. He's never going to be a top 5 quarterback. And then you got Cam Ward, who I think has crazy upside. I don't think he can be a top 5 quarterback either, considering he doesn't really run the ball, but just someone he can rely on as well. But yeah, I'll let you fill in the rest of the gaps if I didn't hit on anything.
Yeah, you touch on most of it. I think what I love most about his team is, you already used this word, but the upside. Like Gibbs, 30 points every given week or any given week. Achane right there. We know that this boom bust wide receiver here on the Lions, like 30-point, Olave, Bowers, like Christian Watson. I wouldn't call it a boom bust roster because you know what you're typically going to get out of Gibbs and A-Chain, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon dropped 200 plus points multiple games this year.
Sure.
Um,
I think the one downside of his team, unless you're going to hit that,
his
maybe let me ask you, what do you think his weaknesses are? Why isn't he above me or Caleb?
Yeah, I would say more so just his wide receivers aren't the deepest. I think that
Hmm.
Olave and McMillan are good, high upside, but you already kind of mentioned it. Christian Watson is a hit or miss, and his bench isn't really filled with any like wide receivers that he can kind of just plug in. I do love his tight end depth between Bowers, Barner, and Fannin. However, tight ends in a super flex dynasty are the least valuable position. So while it is nice to have those backups, it's not terribly important. But you did mention the 107, so maybe he can plug someone in there from the draft at the 107. But what were you thinking for the weaker part of the team?
Yeah, I'd say that just the weaker portion, yeah, like you were saying, Watson and Javante, super volatile. One week Javante has 3 points, the next week he
Throw out
has
Jameson.
30. Sorry, yeah, Jameson. Yeah, you can kind of pull up his chart, but I think he was a little bit more consistent last year. But who knows? In a Petsing, you can see 6, 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he can go crazy for you, but then he can also throw a dud, and it's just kind of hard to rely on someone like that long term, especially when you're a contender. So I think that's hard. I don't know about Christian Watson. We'll have to see. Then we'll have to see if Tech can take the next jump to become like an insulated wide receiver one. But
Right.
yeah, overall, super solid team.
Yeah. I think we're both on the same page about that. It looks like we matched that here. So it looks like you are due up, I believe, or is it me? I don't remember.
I believe it
I
is
think it's
me.
you. Yep.
Yeah.
Who you got the
So
four?
I'm my 4. I'll type it in.
Okay.
I have the champ himself, Mr. Hunter Corbin.
All right. We are looking pretty similar so far. I also have myself there at the 4.
Got it. Maybe I'll kick it off so you don't have to glaze your own team.
Yeah, that works.
I'll say right away, and some people might disagree, but I feel like Dynasty should be played within 2 to 3 year time period. So yes, Hunter does have a little bit older of a team, but I think people like Devontae, people like Barkley, JT, these guys still have another 2 to 3 years of very good football in fantasy land. So that's why I put Hunter at 4. He is a little bit on the older side, but he still does have very solid core pieces that he can build around. In Pickens, in McConkey, Lamar is still both his quarterbacks are almost 30. However, quarterbacks can play in this league till they're 45, given you've seen quarterbacks play into their late 30s and they're fine. So I think he has really good stability at those two positions. I'm a little concerned about his flex positions, just given the fact that I don't even think Diggs is playing this year. Jacoby is solid, but not much upside considering that wide receiver room is absolutely stacked. But I guess once he fills in his roster, he'll be starting Devontae and Aaron Jones is my guess. Yeah. And then who knows how George Kittle's going to bounce back. He could become the old George Kittle that we all know, or he could become the 32-year-old Achilles torn George Kittle that doesn't play as well as he used to. And then you got Travis Hunter on the bench. Personally, I would never trade Travis Hunter just given the fact that you're not going to get much for him. And if you gave him away and he ended up going crazy, you'd just probably be upset. But yeah, and then you don't really have many picks this year, so you're going to probably heavily rely on the free agent market and just kind of trades. So overall, really like your team, really like your outlook the next 2 to 3 years, and I think you just have a solid foundation with your core pieces in George Pickens, Patty, Lamar, and then Lad McConkey. Hopefully, he can break out with Mike McDaniel at the helm now.
Yeah. I appreciate the glaze. But yeah, I would say just in terms of the quarterbacks, I love my quarterback situation. I would say maybe outside of Matt, I'm very comfortable with where I'm at, and obviously your team as well. But I kind of went into the draft knowing that if I was going to take quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, I wasn't going to have to think about that for hopefully 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And I think both of these players have the chance to play for another 10 years, as you mentioned, up until their 40s. Stafford, Brady, it happens up into the upper 30s, even young 40s. So hopefully I don't even have to think about quarterbacks for years on end, so I can invest in maybe some other positions. JT and Saquon, I think they both have the chance to both be top 6 to 8 running backs. Might be a hot take for Saquon, but I think that he's looking to bounce back after having a pretty mid-year last year. And then hopefully JT can play alongside a healthy Daniel Jones, which will help him a whole lot. I'm interested to see what Pickens does this year. CeeDee Lamb was out for a portion of last year, but both with and without CD, he exceeded expectations. So it'll be fun to see what type of season he has next year. Jacoby interests me as well. He had a lot of competition last year and still kind of stood out every single week as the clear wide receiver one. I know he's not a wide receiver one necessarily, but for that team, he kind of stood out. And kind of seeing if Travis Hunter can make any noise on offense will be a fun thing. And then you already kind of mentioned these older players here, but I think Aaron Jones, Devontae, George Kittle, all definitely still have a lot in the tank. Maybe not for 4 to 5 years, but over the next 1 to 3, I think I can definitely still get a ton of value out of them in my roster. And I think JCM also has the chance to kind of take over that backfield. So overall, I think a lot of upside. But you've also mentioned kind of some of my question marks here, which I totally agree with. But I think my personal favorite player this year on my team is actually Ladd McConkey. I think he's going to have a huge breakout.
Got it. Yeah. Everything.
All right. I think it's my turn for 5. I think this one might actually be the biggest shocker of them all. But here I actually have Chandler here in my 5.
Wow.
Yes. So that one, I'll even put that in bold and underline. And you're like, what the hell is that? But yes, I love Chandler. It's team right there at the 5.
Got it. All right. At my 5, I have TP.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about Chandler and TP here. So Chandler's team. So right off the bat, you can make the argument that he has 2 of the top 3 dynasty quarterbacks here in Jaden Daniels and Drake May. And I think you know me at this point, how much I believe in and care about the quarterback position in Superflex leagues. And I think they both have an absurd amount of upside. So just love that combo there. Chase Brown, take a look at this dude's second half of the year. Look at this. 19, 29, 32, 16, 18, 18, 15, 19, 19, 25, 12. This guy's second half of the year was unreal. And I think that with a healthy Joe Burrow, he's going to be an insane running back with huge upside for fantasy. Kenneth Walker, brand new situation there in KC, just came off a Super Bowl win. I think that just between Drake May, Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, Jaden Daniels, those 4 alone, I think have huge upside, and all relatively younger-ish players, plus or minus K. Walker. And then Nico Collins, I think, is a phenomenal asset to have as well. I don't think, was he number 8 last year? I feel he wasn't even that exceptional last year, but maybe he was better than I recalled. Top 8 wide receiver there. Xavier Worthy, yeah. Tight end, meh. Mike Evans, Courtland Sutton, doable. But he still has a nice backup quarterback here in Daniel Jones if he can stay healthy. His bench is pretty dog water, not going to lie. But he does have the 105, so that's another piece that he'll be able to add to his starting lineup. So I don't think he has the greatest depth, but overall, like his starting lineup, especially with the 105 added in here, I think he really has a chance to make some noise this year, and especially over the next couple of years.
Got it. You want me to touch on Chandler's or wait till I put him in my rankings?
I guess while we have him up here, you can just touch on it, and then when it comes time to your rankings, we can kind of just skip him there since you already talked about him.
I think it makes sense to talk about him when I put him in my rankings. People know if I just talk shit about one team, it's just gonna they're gonna assume it's at the bottom half of the league.
Okay, so you want to talk about TP here?
Yeah.
All right, here you go.
Okay, yeah. I have TP'd at 5. We made these pretty quick, I will say, but just looking at his roster, like from the top, starting with Bijan, I think Bijan is a crazy weapon to have. I think he's a top 3 dynasty asset in all of fantasy football. Maybe going along with like just Bijan and Josh Allen. Then you have Amon-Ra, who is Mr. Consistent. I think Bro's been a top 6 or 5 wide receiver for the past, I don't even know, 3 or 4 years. Yeah, like he's wide receiver 3.
I don't know if it's updating or not.
Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyways, like Mr. Consistent, like you had him 2 years ago, Hun. I remember in the redraft, and he's just like an absolute stud you can rely on. Mm-hmm. And then AJ Brown in a new system now, wide receiver 1 on a pass heavy team, I think is just a crazy good asset as well. Just that wide receiver core is stacked. And then Kyron, I think, is everyone's up. Blake Corum's taking over. Blake Corum, like that's not happening. Like Kyron's, they've been saying the same thing the past two to 3 years about Kyron, and he's always produced. And then you get into his quarterbacks. I love Dak Prescott. I think he's a stud. Yeah, he has mistakes here once in a while, but I think his passing volume and touchdown volume is just something that you can't deny, and I think that's why his upside is just so high. Getting into the cons, why I didn't have him as high as some of the other teams. He really doesn't have a tight end, but I think he can address that in the drafts. Shakir, solid, not great. Quinn Johnston, I think he can have a good season with Mike McDaniel. Then Jordan Love is like, he's solid. Deshaun Watson might be good depth, but other than that, like he doesn't have a bench. Like Kamara's not playing, maybe a little, but what's it called? It's taking over that backfield from the Jags. Bijan Robinson. Oh, never mind. It's Brian Robinson. And then he just has a bunch of backups. So I think starting lineup's really good, but he just needs to hit on his depth this year. But yeah, really like his team.
Cool. How much time do we have left here? I'll just double check.
We got about 30 minutes. And
Oh,
we got
30
some
minutes.
overlay. We got some overlay, but yeah, we'll speed it up.
Okay. Okay. You're up next here at your 6, I believe.
Got it. All right. This is another decently hot take, but at my 6, sorry, my thing is lagging. I have Kevin.
Wow. Pretty high spot there for Kevin. Looks like you got him in your top 6, which would be actually the last spot of the playoffs. Here in the 6
Well,
for myself.
let's say this is future. This is long term, right? This is not upcoming season rankings.
Yes, this is a good point. Cool. Then I will put my 6 as well, and we can talk about this. But I actually have Matt Carey here at the 6. So you can go ahead and touch on Kevin there, which, as you said, is perhaps a bit of a surprise here. But let's find Kevin's team. All right, here's Kevin's team.
Love it. I think, like I said initially, I think wide receivers are one of the most important pieces in dynasty football, and I think Jettas and maybe I'll just talk about Jettas alone. Like Jettas had a terrible year last year due to his quarterback play, and he still had a decent season. So I think Kyler, with the addition of Kyler, I think Jettas gets back to his normal form. Quinshawn broke his ankle. I think he's going to get back to a solid RB1-2 range. And then he has 101. I know this is pre-draft, but we're all knowing that Jeremiah Love's going to his team. So I think with those solid, like, 3 pieces, along with T. Higgins, you got Devontae Smith without A.J. Brown this year. Like, that's another piece that's probably going to break out. And over the course of the next 3 years, is going to be a good wide receiver 1, I believe. Not really high in his quarterbacks. Nick's decent, maybe a quarterback 1. Stroud, not the biggest fan of. And then his depth is, he's got Downs. Other than that, he doesn't really have much plug and play. Maybe Tucker. But yeah, I just really like the upside of Kevin's future with Devontae, T. Higgins, Jeremiah Love, and Jettas, along with Nick's.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to touch on, we only explained 10 times, Kevin, but you know what a taxi squad is? Anyways. All right, I had Matt, I believe. Let me touch on Matt's team. Okay. I think for Matt's team, it's kind of a common theme here with our podcast today, because I feel like the teams that you're really liking, you're liking them because you mentioned the phrase wide receiver. I'm liking teams because I mentioned the phrase quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here we have Josh Allen and Caleb Williams. Absurd talent from both of these players. Huge breakout for Caleb Williams. We know that Josh Allen has been a top 1 or 2 quarterback, I think, every single year for the last, I don't even know what they said, 6 years, 7 years, 6, 7, whatever it is. I don't know how many years it's been, but he is undoubtedly, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like it's consensus across dynasty leagues that he is the number 1 asset in all of dynasty football. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but even at age 11 up here, but however old he is, like he is just
He's like 30.
Yeah, he's the best player in dynasty football. So, and I don't really think there's much debate when he's dropping 30 points every week. Like, it's nothing. And then Caleb Williams as well. So, anyways, besides that, I love his running back situation. He's deep in the sense he's got James Cook, Scatterboo, and Brees Hall, who Scatterboo looked great at the beginning of the season. I think he has huge upside next season and over the next handful of years, being how young he is and how energetic he is. And I love how aggressive of a runner he is, even though he might be out with CTE in the next 2 to 3 years. So I guess that could change this whole conversation if that is the case. But I also think Brees Hall, he can only improve from here on out. His situation's been awful since he's been there, and he's still made the most of it. So I think that his upside is also, it's huge. He has a very high ceiling. He just needs to get there, and hopefully the pieces that they've added to that Jets team will allow him to break out. Obviously, his wide receivers aren't great. I think we can see that here, but Marvin Harrison, I think that us as unfortunately Cardinals fans are hoping and praying that he has his breakout year, and he's still super young. I think that there's still a lot of upside there for him. But really outside of him, I could probably see why you ranked Matt a bit lower than I did, because he doesn't really have much at the wide receiver position, which you value a lot. His tight ends, I like Kincaid there. I also like Tucker Kraft, or not even I love Tucker Kraft. I think he was going to be a top 3 to 4 tight end if it wasn't for his injury last season. So I think that Tucker Kraft alone really adds a lot of value to Matt's starting lineup. And then even I guess just for next year, like he's got Brissett here, who I think will be able to be a decent dynasty starter, at least for next season, but maybe not for dynasty as a whole. And then he also has the 106, so he can adjust one of these flex spots, wide receiver spots with hopefully a top 6, good enough starting piece there.
Love it.
The one thing I don't love is his Buffalo players, right? He's got Josh Allen, James Cook, and Dalton Kincaid. I think that kind of limits your upside when you have 3 players in the same offense. But they all performed well last season, so I guess that proved me wrong. But for the sake of time, we'll move on. Here at the 7, I have Kyle Burke.
Love it. At the 7 for me, I have Chandler.
Okay. So I guess that wasn't too hot of a take if I had him at 5 and you had him at 7.
No, actually not too crazy.
Yes. So let's touch on Kyle's team, who, of course, was involved in the first trade of Dynasty Football with me, myself, including Christian McCaffrey, as well as Josh Jacobs. With Kyle's team here, I love the fact that he has CeeDee Lamb and Zay Flowers, who are both young, promising wide receivers. I think, which is interesting that I'm starting with wide receivers because that's normally what you start with. But I think Zay is similar in a sense to who we were just talking about. Oh, like Brees Hall, where like he's in a position to succeed, but it doesn't feel like he's really hit his full potential yet. Especially with a healthy Lamar Jackson, I think that Zay has the potential to be a really great wide receiver in the NFL and to be a star. And CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. As long as he can avoid his injuries, obviously he got him from you in a trade. So it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on CeeDee Lamb from here on out. But of course, I traded Christian McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs for Travis Hunter and Ladd McConkey, which I instantly regretted a few weeks into the season when CMC was himself and Josh Jacobs was that workhorse that you expect from him and as he's done throughout his career. So I still love CMC. I think he's still going to be dominant for another 1, maybe even 2 or 3 years, as long as he can stay healthy. And when he's healthy, he's proven he is the best running back in fantasy football without a doubt. And he's been showing that for years. So I think that kind of like you mentioned at the beginning with my team, like you kind of have that window. And I think Kyle still kind of has that strong window, given CMC alone, along with CeeDee Lamb and the upside from Josh Jacobs as well. He does have Jared Goff and Sam Darnold, who are both on high-powered offenses. They might not be the best quarterbacks in real life, but dynasty-wise, they can still produce based on their touchdowns alone and how many projected touchdowns that their teams are going to score per game during next season. Kyle Pitts probably leaves a bad taste in Kyle's mouth because it lost him the championship last season, but Kyle Pitts, I think, has kind of broken out, and he's a great plug in there at tight end. And then here we still have DK Metcalf, easily a flex option in Dynasty Football. We have Rachaad White here in a new offense in Washington, so it'll be fun to see how him and JCM kind of pair up and see who takes over that backfield. And let's not forget about Laporta at tight end as well. So he's got some good options there. Doesn't have his first round pick, but overall, I think that there is upside. But of course, we still have some holes here. I'm not feeling too confident with Ramondre there as a flex option.
Love it. We might have to hurry it up a little. We only have 19 minutes, but
yeah, the teams here at the end, they don't really deserve as much respect anyway. But no, just
kidding.
That is
facts. I'll hit on Chandler's team really quick.
Okay.
Now that I'm looking at Kyle's team, I might have fucked these ranking ups a little. I think Kyle deserves to be higher, but we can talk. I'll talk about that when I rank him. We did his rankings pretty quick. Yeah, I think Chandler's team is solid. Love his quarterbacks. Running backs are solid. I think he has 2 very good running backs. His wide receiver room, though, like I've been saying the entire time, like wide receivers are, in my opinion, the most important position, considering they're always on the field and running backs always get injured. So if you have good wide receivers you can rely on, like they can carry to a championship. Nico, he's great, can't stay healthy. Xavier Worthy is just Xavier Worthy. Like he's just not great. You can't rely on him. Michael Pittman, like who knows what he'll look like in a Steelers offense. Courtland Sutton, his upside's not there. Like maybe 10 points a game. Also Waddle's the wide receiver 1 there now, so not like super high on him either. Yeah, he has somewhat of depth. Tony Pollard's decent. Who knows what's going to happen in that backfield? And then like there's really nothing left there. So I like Chandler's team at the top. I'm not super confident in his wide receivers though, or his bench options, but he has 105. He can get a good solid piece there, then build out his wide receiver room hopefully.
Cool. All right. I think it might be me. Whatever. Here I have TP here at the 8.
Oh, you know what? I actually fucked my rankings up. I skipped Kyle. That's why I look so weird.
This is awkward.
Kyle was my 7, so.
So you want to put Kyle 7 and Chandler 8?
Yeah, that's fine. But like honestly, I want to put him higher, but it is what it is. I can talk about Kyle really quick if he pulls team back up. Now that I'm looking at Kyle's team, we made these rankings pretty quick. I think Kyle would be right around TP or Kevin. I think I'd put him at 6 actually. I'm very high on Zay this year. I think they just got a new offensive coordinator, and I forget who their old offensive coordinator was, but he just ran the dick out of the ball, and I think that's why I'm just like way higher on Zay, because I think they're just going to be passing the ball way more. CD is going to be a stud. C-Mac. Like I don't know how ETN's going to be. I think he's going to be solid, probably the same as he was in the Jags. Quarterbacks are solid, but I really like his wide receiver core in Zay and CD. I think that's like 2 solid pieces he can rely on every week. And then I think Kyle has the best bench in the league in my opinion. Like he has 3 starters. And Warren, Jaden Reed didn't even mention, but I think Jaden Reed's like the wide receiver 1 on his team. DK Metcalf, like he's solid flex. And then Sam Laporta, like you could throw in at flex as well. So feel solid. Then Jack Besh as well. I think like who the hell knows who's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Vegas. Yeah, I really like Kyle's team. I think I would throw him out like a 5 or 6 spot. So apologies, Kyle.
Yeah, I do like his depth. And I don't know if you heard, but did you hear how he wants to have his name pronounced now?
Was it
Achane? Yeah, let's just make sure we pronounce it the way he wants it in the future.
That's on me.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Lo, bro. All right, let's keep moving on. You got your 9.
Oh, you didn't talk about TP, but if you want to touch his team.
Oh, did I not?
Not touch his team, but touch on his team. Please don't touch his team.
Oh, I guess you already talked about him. Maybe that's why I forgot.
Yeah, if you just want to hit on pieces I didn't touch.
Yeah, let me just touch your team real quick, TP. Thanks.
What the fuck?
But yeah, you already touched on it. I don't think I really need to add too much besides the fact that I'm not a huge Jordan Love believer. So
I gotta interrupt. We're talking about like touching that motherfucker. Look at his first like bench player. Like what are we doing, bro? Like holy fuck. Like, that's insane. Like honestly, like I'm dropping him, bro. Like I can't have that motherfucker on my team. He just messes up the vibes.
Yeah, it's all about the vibes. Good vibes. But yeah, I'm not a huge Jordan Love believer. So I think that's why I ranked him a little bit lower as his QB2, and he doesn't really have like a confident quarterback backup. There's a chance that Deshaun Watson doesn't even see the field next year. Jordan Love as your QB2 is fine. Nothing crazy. And Dak as your QB1, once again, is fine, but also nothing crazy. Bijan's Bijan and has the potential to be the overall number 1 dynasty player this season. And then I'm not really going to touch on everything, but you already mentioned A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra, Kyren, and then his flexes are just pretty weak here along with his tight end. So that's kind of why I ranked him more towards 8 rather than your 5. But anyways, yeah, you go ahead and type in your 9 if you like.
At 9, I have Matt.
Okay. I guess I can do that here for you.
Yeah, my bad. I don't have it pulled up.
Yeah, you're good. And then here at my 9, I actually have Kevin at the 9.
Really quick.
Who am I talking about? Kevin? Yeah, I actually really do Kevin's team. I question if he should be higher, like you ranked him, purely based on dynasty reasons alone, which is, of course, what we are ranking. But once again, it's just like me on repeat, but his quarterback situation is not ideal. I'm not big on either Bo Nix or CJ Stroud. I don't think either of them have a very high ceiling, especially after Bo Nix's injury last season and CJ Stroud just looked like an absolute toddler on the field. So don't really trust him in fantasy too much with his upside. But Quinshon Judkins, along with Jeremiah Love, going to be a pretty strong 1-2 punch there. Jettas, Higgins, Devonta Smith, like fantastic options. DJ Moore, huge upside in Buffalo alongside Josh Allen. And then at his tight end, nothing great. He has Hawkinson, which is fine, but tight end being the least valuable position in Superflex Dynasty football, I'm not really too worried about that. And he also has an additional 109 from Hughes. He can add a depth piece there, which is great for him. So yeah, ton of upside for Kevin, and I think he'll be competing for years on out from starting next year. So shout out Kevin for being at the bottom of the rankings in terms of looking at the sleeper app, but actually ranking higher in both mine and Parker's power rankings.
Matt.
All right, we gotta hurry it on up here. Where is
Yeah,
Matt
I'll be
at?
quick with Matt. Love Matt's quarterbacks, obviously. Love James Cook, Scat, love him. But like just going back to wide receivers, like he doesn't have a wide receiver that I'm confident in like whatsoever. Like Marv is a wide receiver 2, like McBride's wide receiver 1, Dobbs wide receiver 2, Addison wide receiver 2. Like he doesn't even have a wide receiver 1 in his team. That's why he's just so low for me. And I don't even know if he can get one in the draft because like the top 3 wide receivers are probably going top 5. Brees Hall, like you said he had like crazy high upside. Like it's year 4 or 5 now. He's in just as bad of an offense. Yeah, I guess they added some wide receiver pieces and Geno Smith, but like at the same time, like I don't really see it. And then Kincaid's like, eh. Yeah, it's like running back 19. Like I don't really see the hype about him, but
Yeah, he's 20.
He's a solid piece.
He's 25. He's been solid. I think Geno Smith is definitely an upgrade, which is scary to say from Justin Fields, especially
Yeah,
because there's going to be less rushing opportunities taken away from him because of Brees Hall or because of Justin Fields from last season. And they did add some offensive pieces from the draft, so I think that it's gotten better. I'm not saying it's the best, but I think that his situation's gotten slightly better from last year.
that's fair.
If he
Yeah,
was running back 19 and RB1 is top 12, I think he has a potential to be an RB12, right?
got it.
But that was my mindset.
That's fair. All right.
But all
Number
right,
10.
how about we just put our last 3 here and talk about all of them just for the sake of time?
Sure.
You got Henry at the 10, Jaden at the 11,
Can't
and Parker's favorite player in our league, Soren there at the bottom. I have Henry here at the 10. I actually have Soren here at 11, and my fucking boy Jaden here at the bottom. You want to run through Henry, Jaden, and Soren real quick, and kind of why you rank them in that order, or if they're interchangeable kind of thing. But here's Henry real quick.
Yeah, so Henry, I think, has a very solid team just in terms of it's kind of hard just to know with Henry's team. Like I could see Henry being a top 5 team next year. I guess we're not basing it off next year, but I think long-term outlook is solid, but I just don't have a lot of confidence in like Henderson could be great. He couldn't like he could be a dud. Waddle, like I just don't know how he's gonna produce on Denver. Brian Thomas, like who knows? I just don't have a lot of confidence. Chris Godwin, like he's all right. His quarterback situation, like he can rely on Herbert, but other than that, it just doesn't really have too many pieces. I actually think Henry has a top 3 or 4 bench in the league. Like he has Coker, he has Harvey, he has Jordan Mason, Pearsall, Gatson. Like actually, he has a really good bench. I just don't think his like core foundational pieces are something that really excites me, other than like Genty. And then like I think Garrett Wilson is solid, but I just don't see the upside with Geno Smith or that offense.
Yeah, totally fair. I guess I can touch on Henry as well since we both ranked him there at 10, but kind of ditto based on what you said. it's like his players are actually really exciting. Like Genty, super fun. Herbo, Henderson, Wilson, Waddle, Brian Thomas, like all those players are super exciting pieces to kind of look forward to how they perform next year and even for the following 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I think that we are ranking Henry a bit low. So if anything, hopefully that lights a fire underneath him and kind of hypes his team up to do well. I know I've talked to him personally, and he thinks that he's only about a year out from being a strong playoff contender, and I wouldn't even argue with him on that.
And let me jump in. I'll say my 10, if you share the list again, like Henry and TP and Kevin are not that far apart. I think there's a big break off after 10. Like, just because Henry's 10 doesn't mean his team is like more similar to Jaden. Like, Henry could be at 6 with one change or one trade or one additional piece. So I just want to get that kind of thrown out there because Henry's not in the same field as Jaden and Soren. No disrespect to those teams, but like I'm also not trying to disrespect Henry's team at all because I really like his pieces. I just kind of had to rank teams how I saw it. So,
yep, exactly. And we got Soren and Jaden here to wrap up the show. So I'll pull up Jaden's team.
You can pull up Soren's first.
I can do Soren's first if I can find his name. All right. Dobby is a free elf. So here we have Jalen Hurts, and remind me when to stop when I find his second quarterback. Just let me know when to stop. I'm still waiting. Oh, wait, he doesn't have one. So yeah, right away, not having a second quarterback is criminal. I'm actually curious if he has one. I'm still, no, nothing here, right? Okay. Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, here it is. Cameron DK. Oh, wait, I don't even know who that is. But anyways, yes, you need a quarterback. Doesn't seem like you're probably going to get one in the upcoming draft. So it'll be interesting to see which of his bench pieces he plugs into his super flex. Maybe a Travis Horton. I don't even know how to say, what's his name? Tory Horton. Yeah, like he could be an option there.
The girl name.
Yeah. Anyways, I think the reason I slightly ranked Soren's team above Jaden's team was because of his core pieces of Jalen Hurts and Buka and McBride. I know that you're not huge on Jalen Hurts, Parker, but I think he still gets disrespected in fantasy. It was definitely an underperformance from where he was drafted at, but I still think that kind of his floor. I think that Jalen Hurts, with his rushing ability and how many quarterback sneaks that he has with the tush push and whatnot, like his upside in terms of number of fantasy points per game is huge. And Buka, I love Buka from here on out. Super young, 23-year-old wide receiver here for the Bucs, wide receiver 1. And then, of course, McBride, arguably the best tight end in all of fantasy football. So just those three alone, I really, based on their age and their upside, but really besides those pieces, and was a potentially good pickup, but even that's questionable. Nobody knows how that backfield's going to run. And he had a decent pickup here and likely who ended up going to the Giants off the waiver wire towards the end of the season. But really besides that, at the 104, he'll get a good wide receiver. So maybe a nice solid 4 players on his roster, but yeah, Soren, it takes more than 4 players to complete a roster. So you got some work to do, but I do like those 4 players at your core, maybe a bit better than Jaden's older players. But yeah, do you want to touch on Soren's while I'm here?
Do I want to touch on Soren's team? Is that even a question?
Should we just end the show here?
Let me be nice and let me also be mean, right? I do Soren's team better than Jaden's. I will say that right now. However, my confidence in the person that is running this team is why I put him at 12.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
If Soren was Jaden in terms of just keeping his team, Soren would have had a top 5 or 6 dynasty team. He would have been number 5 or he would have had Jalen Hurts, Kyren Williams, who traded for literally jack shit, and Rico Dowdle in a second-round pick. He would have had, we can forget about the other running back who he could have drafted, Emeka Buka. McLaurin is still fine. And then you would have Luther Burden, which is crazy upside. If he kept his core team, he would have had a top 5 to 6 dynasty team, but he just gets too, I don't know, is it anxious? Is it he just wants to make trades? I like making trades too, but I think I benefit from that. He's doing the complete opposite. So
I think he was thinking maybe too short term in the sense of Dowdle was having a great couple of weeks, so let me buy him while Luther wasn't really doing anything. And I think that's kind of with the first season of Dynasty. is we really don't know how to approach it. And some GMs are just better than others. That's the way that we can put it.
Yeah, and I think Soren can change. I think he has 104. Like he can add another solid piece to this roster. I think his roster can compete somewhat, but I think he's a couple years out. So Soren, just get better, bro. I think you're a good guy. You'll make better trades, and hopefully you can compete next year. But I don't think this year's your year, guy.
Cool. And then you want to transition into Jaden's before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think Jaden actually has a competitive roster this year, which is kind of crazy to say. I think it all just hinges on Malik Neighbors. If he's healthy, I think going from the top, if you input Demont and Henry at the top, I think that's a solid running back room. And then you got Malik. Michael Wilson is hit or miss, but he's solid. Dallas is solid. I think Mike Evans is wide receiver one on the 49ers. Jaden Higgins is a wide receiver two, not crazy bad. And then Kirk Cousins and Geno Smith, they're pretty bad, but they're still going to have a quarterback too. So at least Jaden has some play there. I don't think his team's going to be that bad. I think he'll be competitive, but just in terms of long-term outlook, he doesn't really have a lot of core pieces. I think just Malik and whoever he drafts at 103 is what he's building around.
Yeah, I agree. And everything that you said is he could definitely make a run at a potential top 6 seed for this upcoming season, just based on Derrick Henry, Malik Neighbors, Demont alone. Really looking at your core pieces for a dynasty, there isn't really much there. I'd rather have those core pieces that I mentioned on Soren's team. So it might take a couple years for Jaden to kind of start to build his team to really compete. But I think we all kind of knew that on draft day when he drafted a retirement home. So nothing too surprising there. But I think long story short here, kind of just to start to wrap things up, is almost every single team that we've mentioned, whether they're towards the top or towards the bottom, is like we could see any of these teams truly
Pull it back up.
competing.
I totally agree.
Right? Like even Jaden here at the bottom, like he could easily be a top 6 seed. So I think that's what kind of makes dynasties so fun is like whether you built your team to win now or win in the future, it's like any of these teams can still win in any given year. So I'm super pumped for this year. It's right around the corner. I think we're just under 7 weeks now. I think it's approaching 6 weeks before our first game of the year. So looking forward to that, and hopefully we can get some more podcasts out. This one probably wasn't the most exciting one to listen to. Hopefully we can get some more like fun things going and maybe like interactive things or funny things, like whatever you guys are wanting. Just reach back out and let us know what you want, because I don't know, maybe listening to us talk about players for an hour isn't the most exciting. But yeah, we're open to anything and we think it's going to be fun for the league. But any closing thoughts on the season, Parker?
No, I'm just super excited. Year two. I'm excited to see how everyone's team pans out, but appreciate y'all listening. Yeah, let us know if you guys have any ideas and excited for this season with you guys.
Yeah, and we'll also take any ideas on podcast names. So send them our way. Hopefully this turns out all right. Maybe this whole thing didn't even record, and that would be pretty cool too. But yep, thanks for listening. Looking forward to see you guys in the next one. And this was literally 59 minutes on the dot. Cool. All right. See you next time.
Deuces. Did you stop recording?
Yeah.